Hello, Steve. My wife, kids, and I watch y'all's service from Corpus Christi. We've been looking for a church down here. We've been to a few, but ever since we watched you, we've learned a ton from you. We'd love to find a church that we can relate to, like y'all's church. I'm trying to be the southern accent here. Do you have any recommendations?
You know what? What I would do is, if I were you, is I'd go to calvarycca.org. Calvary, CALVARYCCA, Charlie Alpha, .org. And that is the web page for the Calvary Chapel Association. And on that web page, there's a church locator. And so you just get on there, and when the page comes up, there is an arrow pointing down to the church locator. You can push the button, and it will take you to a page where you can type in your either your address or your town or your zip code, and it will give you the Calvary chapels within 50 miles.
Oh, very cool.
And so that's what I would do if I were you. If you want a recommendation on other churches in your area, I would actually call that pastor, the pastor at that Calvary, and he's probably going to have a good idea of other good churches in your location. Obviously, Calvary Chapel isn't going to be the only good church around, and so, well, hopefully not. And so that's what I would do.
Yeah. So I am running into this increasingly where you have a person, whether they move or they're in a new location or whatever, this question keeps coming up more. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times in certain areas, there are not a lot of good Bible teaching churches to recommend. If you're in one of those areas, well, first of all, here's a pro tip. Don't move to a place where there's no believers in a church.
Right, exactly.
Right? Like, here's your sign. If you're praying about moving out into the wilderness, you better have that pinned down.
Yeah.
But second to that is, if you, for whatever reason, are in that situation, would you recommend doing like a home church, a home Bible study, a small group, if there are absolutely no other options, or what would you tell them?
Well, I try. I try to get in. I try to get involved in some church. The Bible's clear on the fact that we're not to forsake the gathering of ourselves together, and so that's in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24 and 25. And so I would connect with some church, and home fellowship is a great thing to do. I understand the mechanics of that whole thing in the sense that you may not be a teacher, or you may not have somebody that can teach that well, and so it's not going to actually necessarily meet the need that you're talking about. When I've been in situations where I felt like I wasn't getting fed at the church that I was involved in, I was listening to the radio, and so that's all I had back then. Sure, was the radio. But I was listening to guys on the radio that I knew were good teachers, and so that was supplemental to what I was getting at church in the first place. And we've got a glut of that. You're already listening to our program on the internet, and so there's ours plus a bunch of others that I could recommend, and so that will help you out. But I'd find some fellowship where I could go and get one-on-one with people, and doing a home study, doing a home fellowship is a great thing. My father-in-law, when he started his first home fellowship, it was back in the late 70s, early 80s. And one of the things that he did was he didn't know how to teach. He didn't know the Bible well enough. And so he just got tapes of Greg Laurie. And so they're, cassette tapes, and everybody would come over and they'd get a cassette recorder, a cassette player, pop the tape in and hit the play button and listen to a Bible study by Greg. Mm. And that's what they did in their fellowship. And then they prayed with each other and talked about the Bible study after the fact and things like that. So you can do something along those lines if you've got nothing better than that. But you need to be connected with some other people is the deal. You need to be accountable to other people. You need to have a place to minister to other people too. And God wants to use you. So
absolutely.
Connect with a church.
All right, there you go.